Okay, here we go. Give me a moment. This is not. Donald Davidoff, co-founder and CEO of Real Estate Business Analytics, here for another episode of The People Behind the Performance, where I sit down with key leaders and disruptors to dive into what's driving the real estate industry's success, the role data plays in it, and tell the stories of the people behind it all. So I'm here today with good friend and guest Todd Katler, who's CEO of Anyone Home. Todd founded Anyone Home, Inc. with the mission to elevate the rental housing experience for both prospective and existing residents. He found as the resident experience improves, customers lease more homes more efficiently and at a lower acquisition cost. Now serving 1 million units nationwide, Anyone Home provides the biggest level of customer engagement and satisfaction for both prospective and existing residents. Prior to launching Anyone Home in 2013, Todd's 25 plus years of industry experience in key executive positions such as Chief Strategy Officer of Entrada, obviously formerly known as Property Solutions, SVP of Sales for LeaseStar by RealPage, SVP Sales and Marketing for BRE Properties, and also VP of Business Development for Level One. And of course, that leaves out where we first met when you were back at Rent.com. I've previously served on the board of directors for LeaseLock, National Apartment Association, and the California Apartment Association. But also has had the pleasure of speaking at several rental housing industry events, including NAA, NMHC, and AIM. Welcome, Todd. Let's dive right in.
Thanks, Donald. Great to be here.
Yeah, so as you think about the state of the industry today, what's on your mind?
Well, really affordability index. It's a really weird issue. Like normally we've all seen a bunch of these cycles and you kind of can see the train coming down the tracks, but the lack of how much underbuilt we are both in for sale and for rent is giving us this sort of fake demand. That is really coming into a collision course with affordability. And normally, like right now, you would see one bedroom exposure spiking, right? People are doubling up or moving back home, and you're still not seeing it, which is, I mean, you're 3 people in one bedroom now. I don't know, but it's a really weird issue.
What makes you excited about the industry right now?
Well, I think, as I know we all wish COVID never happened, but, something you say all the time, the lack of existential risk in our industry makes our industry reluctant to change. And COVID sort of said, too bad, you're going to have to change anyways.
Yeah.
And so I've seen, 15 years of innovation happen in 3. And that's fun to be a part of, because normally it's just a slug, getting people to change the way they operate.
Yeah, it's the only time in my 20 plus years in the industry that we actually moved at tech speed and not real estate speed. Let's turn a little bit more to the personal side. How did you get started in the industry? I know, I certainly represent that sort of archetype of came from the outside, and the industry's kind of like flypaper. Once you're in it, you get stuck.
Yeah.
There are some people who actually started intending to be in real estate, but it seems like there's more accidental members who just can't leave than anything else. So what's your story?
No, so back in '95, I was doing corporate cell phone sales back when that was a huge thing. And and one of my best friends, his family friends, they had a applicant screening company, which was actually the first applicant screening company in our industry, called the UD Registry, that was looking to expand east. And they said, geez, we know a great sales guy. And 3 months later, I was working for them, and I was like, what's tenant? Well, at that time, everyone called it tenant screening. Like, what's tenant screening? Like, oh, you mean credit reports? Like, there's an apartment industry. Like, no one ever thinks it exists. But that was 28 years ago.
Wow. And then did you go from there straight to rent.com, or what's that
No,
story?
I actually left there and went and joined rentals.com, which, was nice, still exists today under the or I guess now Redfin brand, but was a great product at the wrong time, right during the dot-com bust. We ended up selling that to Apartment Guide back then. And then I joined the rent.com team in 2000, maybe 2000. I think it was late 2000. I joined rent.com.
Okay.
Yeah,
I still remember my first recollection of you is, and this will date us, the first time I ever rode a Segway was courtesy of you. If you remember one of the trade shows, you had a Segway, and that was the cool thing back then, right?
That's funny.
So I still remember you letting me get on that Segway, and it was the first time I ever rode a Segway. Kind of funny. So when you think about your career, who's been your most influential mentor?
Scott Ingram.
Tell more.
Yeah, that's an easy one. Scott Ingram is the entrepreneur's entrepreneur in multifamily. The 9-year journey we went through at Anyone Home up until the acquisition just a couple months ago. I think when I was really struggling, there was two things I would ask myself: is what would my grandfather do, and what would Scott Ingram do? And did my best to try and replicate both. Probably neither one well, but that was always my North Star with decision.
So yeah, so you mentioned the acquisition. I mean, obviously Anyone Home is going through a transition right now. Just what, a month or 6 weeks, however long it is, under Inhabit IQ. So what are the challenges you feel like Anyone Home's facing right now, and what are you doing to overcome it?
Well, to be honest, I don't know if I would say challenges. This is my fifth transaction. First time as CEO of a fifth transaction, and more often than not, the shareholders are happy, but you're going to have to apologize to customers or employees because whoever acquired you is just going to mess the whole thing up. And then maybe they have other priorities, but it's not what the customer's priorities were, and it's not what those employees' priorities were. I really wanted to and succeeded in a transaction where I didn't have to make apologies to anyone, because the shareholders would be happy, the employees would be happy, and our customers would be happy. And so I wouldn't say challenges. I mean, obviously I have to learn a lot. They have a very wide platform. It's super exciting. I guess the challenge is I had to learn how to fill out an expense report. It's been a while, but beyond that, no, it's been really neat.
Yeah, but the whole concept of not having to apologize to customers and employees. I mean, I've been on the side where vendors had to apologize to me back when I was at Archstone, or people who got out. Sorry,
I was one of those people that had to.
Yeah. Although I'm trying to remember if I left just in time to avoid that. Anyway, but yeah, here I am, first time CEO. I mean, I've been involved in plenty of transactions, Archstone being one of the biggest ones. But again, first time CEO myself at Reba. So I'd actually love to double click on that. Like, how is it that you went about finding someone that you are proud to have as the new owner and not have to apologize? Because obviously Reba someday I'd love to have a good exit, but I don't want to have to apologize to anybody. So teach me something now I can use 4 or 5 years from now.
I think it all comes down to what your sense of purpose is. If the sense of purpose is only about money, then that's luck, right? Whoever's the highest bid with the highest certainty of close. And look, if you're venture capital backed, that is going to be the driving force. And let's face it, if firm A would have been 30% higher than Inhabit, it might not have ended this way, and I would be breaching my fiduciary responsibility if I allowed it to. To the extent that people are in the same ballpark, then it comes down to a sense of purpose and a sense of pride, and honoring those that actually created all the value. While the investors enabled it, the investors didn't create the value. Your customers and your employees did. And as you know from being a former board member of Anyone Homes, those were conversations I dug in on really hard. Not always winning popularity contests when I did so, but it was the right thing to do.
No, I was going to say that. Yeah, that North Star purpose is really critical, and I feel like we have that at Reba. I hope we demonstrate that to our teams as well. So, you're a good blue sky guy. If you had 10 times the budget that you have right now, what would you spend it on that you're not at the moment?
I think I would do what I know we're accomplishing at Inhabit, and I see a couple other firms trying to do as well, is this sort of divorce from the accounting platforms from the operating software, where the concept of putting them all together has produced some pretty good results, but it's proven to be harder than any of those firms ever thought. I think the way we're looking at it in Habit, where we have that in Resman, but we also have that ability to do it off Resman, by using best of breeds products, really beautifully integrated, is a really interesting thing. So yeah, if money was unlimited, I could know the 4 or 5 things that I would take under anyone home's
Sure.
tool shed, so to speak.
So here's one of my favorite questions. What's one thing that Todd Katler today knows about the industry that you wish you could go back and tell that 1997 or 98 Todd Katler, who was just coming into the industry, that obviously that Todd Katler didn't know, but you know today?
Well, okay, about our multifamily industry.
Just something something that if you could have taught, if that Todd Katler knew something, he just would have been able to do that much better because you've learned something over this time.
I would have made myself learn SQL.
Really? Interesting.
Yeah. That's I'm really good at Excel, which doesn't make up for it, but gets me, at least it's a, sort of a database. But one thing in our industry is all roads lead to the database. And the better knowledge you have of that structure, and the more I learn, the more effective I become, and the more I'm able to understand what's possible and what's not, and why it's hard. So if I could rewind the clock, I would become proficient at SQL.
Okay, interesting, excellent. You've always been a lifelong learner. It's one of the things I like about you. You and I sort of share that. What are some of the resources that have been good to you in terms of I don't know, magazines or blogs or books or whatever? What are those resources that you really rely on to learn from?
I would say I'm more rely on people.
Okay.
And then books. When I read, I tend to read military history, and I think there's a lot of business lessons to be learned there. Perhaps one of the best. I could think about how many things I've learned from you on analyzing data and then the way to structure things. I could think of things I learned from Scott Ingram or Mike Mueller on entrepreneurship. I could think of things I learned from Gina Anastasi about being self-aware. And owning the things you're not so sporty at. I think there's a lot of people that I draw from. I think there's a lot of employees that I learn from, the people that I brought in, but recognize have a gift in something, and then you try and emulate that. But I'm probably less of a business book reader than I used to be. I think back in the day I used to. I find myself getting too distracted now.
Yeah. What do you think has changed the most? I mean, you've been, as you said, you got 25, 27 years in the business. What have been the biggest changes you've seen over those 2.5 decades?
Well, I think probably the most is most platforms recognizing that technology is a part of the business and not an appendage of the business. I think probably the first sign of that was when NMHC changed it from the tech conference to OpTech, right? Like that was probably a good early indicator of how we were looking at this wrong. That would probably be the best, but I think you saw it. Matter of fact, you were probably one of the first examples of this in multifamily was when they took a data person and put them in charge of marketing, where that would never happen. And for the most part, still doesn't. And not to say that there isn't value in both. But it was, it was when the sort of acknowledgement that digital marketing was going to drive multifamily success.
Yeah, no, I mean, I still remember, when I first got in the industry, not long after you, was probably 90, 99-ish. And I mean, it was all about the print books and, local signage and balloons and sign spinners. My God, the number of arguments we had over how much sign spinners cost and whether or not to use them. And today it's all digital, it's all analyzable, even if it's difficult, which is actually a good segue into sort of a section talking a little more about data. Obviously, real estate business analytics is a data platform, data analytics platform. So I always like to talk about data. So let me just start that section with a kind of open-ended question. What does data-driven decision-making mean to you?
Well, it means you don't have an opinion when you don't need one. I think the biggest problem in our industry is people inserting bias when it's absolutely unnecessary. And not that your opinion isn't valid, it's just an opinion.
Right.
So I constantly hear us as an industry, meaning us, saying, well, most people want da 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 da. By the way, my wife tells me that all the time, which she doesn't like what I'm doing. And my response is the same, which is not good. It's just like, so when have you talked to most people? Like, how did you analyze the data for most people? And you know, it's why I get a snarky look from her.
I think that works in the business office. Trying that at home, I don't know. That might not be your best strategy.
You're probably right, but you know, I don't know. Maybe was a leopard doesn't change his stripes, but it's how did you go about forming that conclusion? And that's where we get into the most people. You know, people always kind of look at me funny when I say this. Ironic that, you know, I operate a 400-person contact center when generally I don't like talking to people. So it's like, you know, I tend to be a little bit more of, I'm much more shy than people realize. So, you know, it's not about me or what I want. It's about what everybody, what the general public wants.
Yeah, no, that's really interesting. I'm having a little network difficulty here. I'm actually in a hotel, but hopefully it's working again now. No, that is, what it does is it reminds me of an NMHC session once when somebody on stage was talking about what consumers wanted in rental housing. And I can't remember whether I actually said this or whether I just wanted to. So we'll be less aggressive and just say I wanted to stand up and say, excuse me, could everybody who is in this room who is currently renting their home, please raise their hands? Right. And of course, no hands would go up because I can't name an executive in this industry who doesn't own their own home. So I've always tried to be very humble that, I mean, the last time I rented a home was when I was in the Air Force in, that would have been 1990. I mean, I bought my first home in late 90. So, you know, when you're trying to talk about what residents want, maybe you need to go talk to the residents and not just have an opinion. Very, very interesting to me. So how does Anyone Home go about measuring performance?
Well, I mean, I think most of what we measure, you know, that's probably public facing is conversion data, which, you know, unfortunately, the way the property management software platforms, all of them are really identical with this, are set up is really to support an accounting structure. And that's great. And, you know, but it doesn't really, it's not really conducive for analyzing the footprints in the snow of a prospect's journey. So most of what we hang our hat on is like, okay, if you're getting paid on move-ins, then we're going to figure out what makes move-ins. So most of what we root is on what's going to create lease conversion, because if you understand that, that's when you can start to pull the levers on customer acquisition costs and understanding where those trade-offs are and start to push RPU up and start to push vacancy loss down, all kind of like, I look at it as like a triangle of balancing all of that to try and manage whatever exposure you want.
So you and I have both seen a lot of changes in the way data and data analytics have worked in this industry. Where do you see the future of data analytics? Where do you think it's going?
Well, I'd like to see a little bit more clarity between the web usage and the off-web usage. We're getting there. In fact, we're doing a project now with our friends at Holland Residential that's going to be really telling on this. But there's still a little bit of missing footprints that kind of require some conjecture or guessing that I think we can probably not eliminate but reduce. You know, I felt like as a people we were going headstrong that direction, but I think kind of the Facebooks of the world got everyone a little gun shy about how much was being tracked, and now we're going the other direction, which I actually am supportive of. I think it was getting a little scary when misused, but I'm still waiting for people to have barcodes, you know, put on their head when they're born. Until that time, we're going to have to do a little bit of guessing. Just
insert an RAF tag the way they do with dogs, right?
Yeah. Wait, did I say that out loud?
Yeah, I was joking when I said that, but I know you. I'm not so sure. No, it's all good. Hey, so what do you see as the biggest threat to that future? Like, what are the threats to data and better data analytics in this industry?
I think we'll go back to what we were talking about a few minutes ago. There's no existential risk. You're either going to
Yeah.
make a lot of money or a really lot of money for the most part, to the extent that you have decent debt and
Yeah.
you're not totally blindfolded while you're operating your property. So the question is, how much margin are you going to make, and how much effort are you willing to do to eke out those extra marginal points? Like when I talk to operators who know they're not doing a good job, but sometimes they're like,
especially right now with rents, rents up 14% nationwide.
yeah.
How hard do I want to work to get 15 instead of 14? That's a really good. It's a really good point. Well, you and I have talked about this before. When I've done consulting on go-to-market strategy, I always remember a lesson my brother taught me, which he picked up from whatever sales course or whatever he got it from. But people are only motivated by two things: seeking pleasure and avoiding pain. They're much more motivated to avoid pain, right? So existential risk is avoiding pain. 15 or 16% instead of 14, that's actually pleasure. And God's honest truth is people just aren't on average as motivated for that. So I think that is a real sort of structural challenge to our industry, no doubt. Well, let's go ahead. This has been a fun 25 minutes. Let's wrap up with sort of ditching the heavy lifting and ending the interview the way we do all these people behind the performance interviews, with just a little fun rapid fire sort of James Lipton style Q&A. The only rule is don't think too hard. Okay? So question one, what book has influenced you the most?
Hunting the Jackal.
And who's the author? Do you remember?
Don't remember. It was an autobiography.
Okay. Well, there you go. I'm sure you can Google that if anybody wants to find that. What is your favorite time of day?
Kind of end of the day when the sun's still sort of out, but it's cooler. Right around 5 o'clock now, 5:30, right around there.
Yeah, cool. What's your favorite app?
Solitaire.
Solitaire. There we go. What is your biggest pet peeve?
People who are late.
People who are
or wasting time.
What's your spirit animal?
What's a spirit animal? I don't think there's data around that.
There you go. It's your intuition around what animal would most convey the essence of Todd Katler.
I don't know. I mean, I love dogs. I want to say a dog, but I have no clue.
Okay, well, we'll just go with a large dog.
I'm gonna have to go with what's a spirit animal.
There you go. Okay. If you had to pick one food to eat forever, what would you eat? And I think it might be the same as David Stanford, but we'll wait and see.
I'd probably go sushi.
Oh, sushi. Okay. I wasn't sure.
Well, it's the only thing that's delicious that won't kill you.
Yeah, but you got to eat it forever, so
But that's what is forever? Like I would say brisket, but I'd be dead in 2 weeks. But
Hey, David, my first interview with David Stanford, he went with barbecue, and I thought you might go there because I know your barbecue is famous.
Again, 3 meals a day. You're opposed to eating that much sugar, so that's why I went sushi.
There you go. And finally, what's your go-to for having a good laugh?
Oh, despair.com.
Despair.com. I'll have to check that out. I am not.
They make fun of successory posters.
That is, okay. Yeah, successory posters are. I think they were introduced by the devil. I'm pretty sure.
Oh, okay. If you're having a bad day, go to despair.com. You'll be cracking up.
Despair.com. Absolutely. Well, thanks for sharing all your insights.
Thanks, Donald.
Where can everyone find out a little bit more about Anyone Home online and what you guys do?
Yeah, anyoneHome.com. It's always there to help. We try and be really consultative. Whether you use us or not, we're always happy to have a conversation and learn something.
Yep, and I'm sure you and your team will be at NAA. So anybody going to
that
NAA?
We will. Very excited.
Everything there. Great. Well, thanks again. I appreciate it, Todd. It's always good fun
Donald.
having a conversation with you.
Appreciate it.